Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Post Route. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, and I guess I can say it professional football season is officially over after last night's 58th Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs pulling it out in overtime over the San Francisco 49ers by the score of 25-22. With that being said, there won't be any football, professional football, NFL football. Let's put it that way. No more NFL football for about 6 months. Of course, the other leagues are gearing up, and I guess we'll be watching them within the next couple of months. I know some of the teams in the Arena Football League are gearing up. So let's get ready for the XFL and Arena Football as they gear up. But the NFL is officially done for 2023 with last night's epic, I think first time ever overtime Super Bowl in the history of this game. After 58 years, it finally got to one that had to be decided after those 60 minutes had expired and both teams had put 19 points on the board. And perhaps if San Francisco had kicked that extra point, the game might have been a little bit different for the Kansas City Chiefs. But nonetheless, the Chiefs pull it out and become one of the few teams to win back-to-back Super Bowl championships in the history of their storied franchise. And the man who pulled it all together to win his third Super Bowl in 5 attempts, Patrick Mahomes. Now, this has nothing to do with whether or not you're a 49ers fan or a Chiefs fan. We're just going to talk about the facts of who he was and what he did. And I'm going to bring you some other information that you may find pretty interesting and historical as we talk about last night's Super Bowl game with the Chiefs and the 49ers. But last night was the 16th time those two teams had met. And going into last night's game, San Francisco had an 8-7 advantage over Kansas City. Well, now they're at 500, 8-8. And that was the sixth Super Bowl appearance for the Kansas City Chiefs, while it was the seventh for the San Francisco 49ers. However, in their last three efforts at the Super Bowl, the 49ers have lost all three attempts to win another Super Bowl. Now, when we talk about the number of rings or titles each one of these franchises have, well, of course, San Francisco has 6 titles, and Kansas City, with last night's win, they now make it 4 titles. So they started talking about Kansas City from a perspective of dynasty. Well, if you've been to 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 years and you've won 3 out of 5 in the last 5 years, and you've got a quarterback who has yet to hit the age of 30, and you've got other players on the teams who are in their mid to late 20s, you might want to talk about a dynasty. And when we talk about dynasties, there aren't too many teams that will fall under that banner of being a dynasty, starting with the New England Patriots, then the Pittsburgh Steelers, then the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I think now, with them winning their third one in 5 years, you can start to slowly etch their name in under that legendary legacy of teams that have done phenomenal things in their franchise history. You talk about those Kansas City Chiefs and what they did last night. I got to say, it was a great ball game. Defensively, it was good. Offensively, it was good. You want those kind of games at the Super Bowl where both teams are kind of going back and forth, and that's what you had last night, back and forth, back and forth. And of course, as you say many times, the team with the ball last normally looks to try to win the ball game. And although there are some writers that said San Francisco probably should have deferred that overtime kickoff, who's to say that even if they went for the 2-point conversion, they would have made it? You know how difficult that 2-point conversion can be. But nonetheless, you know how it goes in life, in sports. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And the 49ers have nothing to hang their heads low for because they played an outstanding game. They didn't lose, as someone said. They didn't lose. It's just Kansas City won. I mean, that's probably a better way of looking at it. And it was an outstanding ball game. So here you had two outstanding quarterbacks who played very phenomenal football leading up to the Super Bowl. And then they played phenomenally in a game that really just, you had to stay tuned to the game all night long because you couldn't dare take a chance of turning away too long or going to grab a snack or something to drink too long because something could have happened. And it seemed like San Francisco was going to control the game, but as we all know, that guy in red with number 15 on his chest is one hell of a quarterback. And we've seen him do a lot of phenomenal things. So we still got more to see from him. He says they have more to do. They still got work to do. They're already talking about three-peat. Well, not to say they won't do it, because they possibly could. But getting to that Super Bowl is such a difficult thing to do. First and foremost, the schedule's got to be right. Second and foremost, you got to stay healthy. Third and foremost, you got to be playing your best football in the playoffs. So you got to get there, you got to be healthy, and you got to play well just to get to the Super Bowl. So if they can do those three things in 2024, look for them to be returning to the Super Bowl. And again, when we talk about consecutive winners, there haven't been many teams to do that. Not too many teams have done that. The first team to do it were the legendary Green Bay Packers under coach Vince Lombardi and another number 15. And now when we talk about the best quarterbacks who ever wore the number 15, well, you got to put two names at the top of the list. Out of deep respect, I first have to say Bart Starr, who wore number 15 for the Green Bay Packers. Led them to back-to-back Super Bowls. The first two Super Bowls ever played, he led Green Bay to back-to-back wins, first over Oakland, the Raiders, and then over Kansas City. Now you have this number 15 who has won back-to-back Super Bowls over Philadelphia and San Francisco. And just think, had they played a little bit better in another game, they may have almost run, 4 in a row. But that's for another discussion. But just the fact that they played so well last night when they had to, when they needed to, when you got to play your best ball, when you got critical downs with critical plays, 4th down and 2, 4th down and 7, somebody's got to make a play because it could end with that play. Well, Patrick Mahomes did what he was supposed to do, what he normally does. He finds a way to win, and that's what he did last night. 4th down, used his legs to get first downs. 4th down, used his legs to get first downs. Found the receivers he needed to find at the critical times. And then, of course, what a play to seal the deal last night. You get movement, you get a linebacker, cornerback, or a safety distracted for a second, and things change. And that's what they did last night. They called a great play. And now Andy Reid has to be considered as one of the great coaches of all time in the NFL, sitting on 3 Super Bowl wins with Kansas City now and playing the way they've done. I mean, 3 in 5 years. I mean, unbelievable. We knew he was a talent when he was coaching the Eagles, but this far overshadows whatever he did during those years when he was coaching the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're going to jump into this about the quarterbacks because that's what we're here for here at the Post Route, talking about quarterbacks. And last night, Patrick Mahomes etched his name in history as one of the few black quarterbacks to not only start a Super Bowl, but to win a Super Bowl. He earned his 3rd Super Bowl MVP, second consecutive. So he earned it in 2020, now 2023, 2024 Super Bowls. So wanted to just give you a quick graphic and some information, because in the history of the Super Bowl, 13 quarterbacks have been the starters in this game. And I'm going to start off with the first guy, and I want to make sure I clarify this. Although he is not black, he is a man of color. And because a man of color probably had to face some of the same things, the naysayers talking about, what he could do, what he couldn't do. I had to, with all due respect, I had to start off by talking about Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett led the 1981 Oakland Raiders to the Super Bowl championship over the Philadelphia Eagles. Jim Plunkett is of Mexican descent. Both his parents were Mexican. He played college football at Stanford. Outstanding football player there. The first team who drafted him in the first place he landed was New England, but it didn't work out for him there. It just did not work out for him in New England. Came back home to the state of California, landed with the Raiders, and ended up leading them to the 81 championship in fine fashion. An outstanding quarterback. So Jim Plunkett is a quarterback of color. I'm going to put that down first. But then after that, the next names, 9 names that I will give you are all black quarterbacks. So after Plunkett, there came the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl in 1988, Doug Williams, Super Bowl 22. And he put on a show that particular night. I mean, he threw for more yardage and more touchdowns in one half than any quarterback had ever done. Doug Williams. Then it would be 12 years later before the next black quarterback would start in the Super Bowl. And for me, I call him the greatest black quarterback from black colleges. And that would be Steve Air McNair. 1 yard away from winning a Super Bowl with the Tennessee Titans in 2000, Super Bowl 34. So, moving along after him in 2005 in Super Bowl 39, Donovan McNabb of the Philadelphia Eagles, followed by Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers in 2013 in Super Bowl 47. Russell Wilson, back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, 2014, 2015, Super Bowls 48, 49. Again, 1 yard away from winning back-to-back Super Bowls. And I just must throw in a little salt on that particular wound, if y'all don't mind. I will forever and a day state that that pass that was called for them to throw did not need to be thrown, simply because Marshawn Lynch had gotten them to the 1 yard line after a 4 yard run from the 5. And with all due respect, I believe he should have had an opportunity to take it in the end zone on second down, maybe third down. Had I been Russell Wilson, I would have audibled, given the ball to Marshawn Lynch, and all the coach could have done was be mad. But if we had scored, he could be mad all he wants to, but back-to-back Super Bowl champions, because these guys always talk about they want to win a ring, and then you call a play that, in my humble opinion, really didn't make any sense. For a guy of Marshawn Lynch's caliber, a guy who runs reckless, that's what they call a guy who just will barge through things and just go through things. That's the way he plays. He plays, as they said about Pacheco, he runs violently. But that means that's a guy, man, it's hard to stop. And I think Marshawn Lynch and the offensive line and everybody else in that huddle were hungry enough to want to win one more Super Bowl. But a play that was called and the interception that happened after that pass was thrown by Russell Wilson kept them from etching their names in the history books. So that's my little salt on the wound about that particular Super Bowl. And although Russell Wilson played in back-to-back, and he should have back-to-back rings, it did not happen. Following Russell Wilson, Cam Newton for the Carolina Panthers in 2016. Then Patrick Mahomes. Basically, Patrick Mahomes, 2020, 2021, 2023, 2024. Aside from 2022, he was, almost 4 consecutive Super Bowls, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 Super Bowl appearances. I mean, back-to-back, take a day off, back-to-back, So he won the first one, lost the second one, and then he was back-to-back winners. And then in the only time that 2 black quarterbacks were starters to start the Super Bowl last year, 2023, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. That's the first and only time that 2 black quarterbacks have started a Super Bowl game. So you see the graphics, you see the images, you see these guys. They are outstanding men who got their teams to the big show. And it's a team effort. And sometimes the team doesn't always win. However, these men have etched their names in the history books. And here at the Post Route, we wanted you to know just what they had done, because we all know that the journey for black quarterbacks over the years has been very arduous. From the aptitude tests to the fact that you didn't think a black quarterback could think. You didn't believe that their skill sets would allow them to be drop back passers. Whatever the excuse was, many young men have broken down that barrier, torn down that wall, destroyed that myth. So now, in a day and age where speed has caught up with being in that pocket, and if when these defensive coordinators are calling these blitzes and defensive linemen, linebackers, cornerbacks with this speed, you don't have much time to stand back there and throw when they call those kind of defenses. So when you look at where quarterbacking is going in this day and time, in certain respects, you got to have an athlete back there. So with there being about 16 starting quarterbacks that started off the 2023 NFL football season, first time in the history of the NFL that has ever been done. The second time in the history of the NFL, you had 3 black quarterbacks on a team. This year with the Baltimore Ravens. Some years back, the Jacksonville Jaguars had 3, and David Garrard, Byron Leftwich, and Quinn Gray. That was the only other time. That was the first time. The first time that happened. And that was all a part of the fact that the guy who was the Director of player personnel James Shaq Harris was a black quarterback, played in the NFL, AFL before he went to the NFL, played at Grambling. So uh, they had an opportunity and they made that work. But again, sometimes all the pieces don't fit quite right. And one of the things I've always said about playing on a football team, especially a pro team, sometimes a team is not the right fit for certain players. So that's why you see them leave and go to other teams and do phenomenally well because that system did not work for who they are or their skill sets. Uh, the right players just weren't in the mix. So when they go somewhere else and become phenomenal, and you're like, well, why weren't they like that at our team? The systems, coaching personnel, player personnel. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle, and it takes some time for it to mesh. The hardest position on a football team to mesh is an offensive line. It takes quite a bit of time before those guys gel together and can provide what's necessary for the running and the passing game. And sometimes the pieces just aren't there. They just don't come together. So you've seen it many, many times where a guy leaves and goes to another team and does well. Uh, so you saw it happen with Jim Plunkett. You saw it happen with Doug Williams. Doug Williams was the number one draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the mid 70s, about 76, 77. Took them to their first ever playoffs. He left because management felt he didn't deserve what the average quarterback was making in salary at the time. Uh, my history tells me that $50,000 for a quarterback when the top quarterback in the league is making about 400,000. Something's wrong with that equation, especially when you coming off a 0-26 record and this guy turns your team around in a couple of years and takes them to the playoffs. So because that was not a good fit, he decided to leave Tampa Bay, went to the USFL, and then when the USFL folded, landed with the Washington, at that time, Redskins, and led them to a Super Bowl. One of the most phenomenal games, we've ever seen, and became the first black quarterback to lead a team to a Super Bowl. So things don't fit all the time, but I guarantee you this. It's going to be a few years. Things change. And I'm going to say this. I expect Patrick Mahomes to finish his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. And if he can become the GOAT, as he is starting to already etch his name in, the G is already there. A couple more of these Super Bowls, and the O, A, and T will be there also. Uh, the comparison to Tom Brady is going to be there. And, uh, you know, when you get to be a certain age and, time is kind of taking its toll, okay, so maybe it's time to move on to the next team or just call it a day. These guys are so competitive that sometimes they don't know when to hang up their helmet. But I foresee Patrick Mahomes being with this team. Hopefully, Andy Reid is with the team to be there to help guide them for the next 5 years, and maybe they can win 2 more Super Bowls if in the next 5 years, maybe 3. So those are my quarterbacks who have started in Super Bowls, the years and the Super Bowls they played in. Let me just run through them again. Jim Plunkett, Oakland, the Raiders. Doug Williams with Washington. Steve McNair with Tennessee. Donovan McNabb with Philadelphia. Colin Kaepernick, San Francisco. Russell Wilson with Seattle. Cam Newton with Carolina. Patrick Mahomes with Kansas City. And Jalen Hurts with the Eagles. Now, if you're wondering what the breakdown is on guys winning MVP and who's won the most by position, well, of course, that is probably reserved for the most iconic position on the football team, of course, and that's the quarterback. And in 58 Super Bowls, with 58 MVP awards, a quarterback has won an MVP award 33 times. 33 times. And Patrick Mahomes just etched his name in there with 3 of them. And he's still looking at some more to go. So the quarterbacks have won 33. Wide receivers have won 7. Running backs have won 7. Linebackers have won 4. Defensive backs have won 3. Defensive linemen have won 3. 1 year, 2 defensive linemen for the Dallas Cowboys were co-MVPs, Harvey Martin and Randy White. And then 1 kick returner has won the MVP. And that's how it stands. So the one person you won't ever have to worry about winning an MVP in the Super Bowl is called the offensive lineman. However, they should get a lot of credit for the job they do. As they say, they're down in the trenches doing that grunt work, and they don't always get the notoriety that they get. Thankfully, they are starting to earn the paychecks that they deserve, but they don't always get the notoriety that they deserve. But when the quarterbacks recognize them and salutes go to those guys, those 5 guys up front, thanking them for their efforts, thanking them for all the work they did, thanking them for keeping them safe, protecting them, whatever the acknowledgement might be. Well, thank you, offensive linemen, for doing your jobs. So that's what we have for the Super Bowl MVPs. Now, I'm going to take a quick time out, and when I come back, I'm going to give you the breakdown on who the quarterbacks were with the MVPs, and also I'm going to give you some statistical information as the all-time passers, because these guys put up some numbers. They put up some numbers, and they were some outstanding numbers, and they, stand along with some of the things they did. So stay with us. We'll be right back right here on the Post Route as we get ready to take this quick time out to bring you our advertising from our sponsors. So first what I want to do is bring you this about the book that will tell you all about black quarterbacks if you want to find out who they are. And it's simple and easy to get your copy of The Forgotten QBs, written by yours truly, W. Earl Kitchings. The little known history, statistics, information, all the things you want to know about these black quarterbacks from 1903 to 1990, who they were, the outstanding quarterbacks, who they were, what they did. It's also got other statistical information, got some articles about some great stories about some of the black players who helped to make the NFL great. So when you get an opportunity, I want you to check out the book, The Black Forgotten QBs, and that way you can keep up with who they are and what they did. So go to our website at quarterphiback.com, quarterphiback.com. Click on the icon for the Forgotten Quarterbacks book, put in your order, email it to us at quarterphiback@yahoo.com. Cost is only $35. Shipping is free, and we'll get your copy, your autographed copy, out to you right away. Now, if you're looking for things for your next collegiate activity, especially if you go to a black college, you're looking for that gear, the right gear to wear, go to the folks out at the Anthony Lawrence Collection. They've got some of the most phenomenal gear you ever want to see. They're taking care of all the HBCUs and more. And you can find what you need when you go to their website and go through their gallery of products. Go to their website at anthonylawrencecollection.com. Check them out. See if you can find what you like and get ready. Well, it's basketball season, So maybe you can find that basketball gear or your baseball gear. But whatever your need may be, go to the Anthony Lawrence Collection at anthonylawrencecollection.com and let them know you found out about them right here on the Post Route. So going back to our show. So now that I gave you the breakdown on the Super Bowl MVP awards by position, let me do a breakdown on the quarterbacks and the number of MVPs they have won. And there have only been 2 black quarterbacks to win MVPs. Doug Williams won 1, and now Patrick Mahomes has won 3. But those are the only 2 guys who have won Super Bowl MVPs. At the top of the list, Tom Brady with 5, Joe Montana, Patrick Mahomes with 3, Bart Starr, Terry Bradshaw, Eli Manning with 2, and then all the other quarterbacks combined to make up 16 quarterbacks who have been selected the MVP. 16 others. Now, when we talk about the names of quarterbacks with consecutive Super Bowl MVPs, consecutive, only 3 guys, only 3. In the 58 years of the Super Bowl, only 3. And they have one little trivia piece to add to this that makes them very unique. The 1966 and 67 Super Bowls 1 and 2, Bart Starr was the MVP from the Green Bay Packers. Bart Starr. 79 and 80, Super Bowls 13 and 14, Terry Bradshaw of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Won them back to back. And now 2023, 2024 Super Bowls 57 and 58, Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs has won consecutive MVP Super Bowl trophies. Remember when they used to, Disney was a part of that, and they would always flash right to the winner and say, where are you going? And they would always say, I'm going to Disney World or Disneyland. I don't know if they still do that, but that was quite entertaining to see them do that. A good thing for Disney. Got a lot of people to go there and see. But the one trivia part of those 3 players, the one trivia part that connects those 3 players is this. Each one of those quarterbacks won a Super Bowl and an MVP award playing the Super Bowl in Miami. They each won a Super Bowl in Miami. As a matter of fact, Terry Bradshaw won 2 in Miami. So that little slither of information connects these 3 guys. So if you ever get a trivia question or you want to ask somebody a trivia question when you're talking about quarterbacks who've won Super Bowls, ask them, what city did 3 quarterbacks who won consecutive Super Bowls, what city did they play in? And again, that was Bart Starr with the Packers in Miami in 67. One of them was in Miami in 67, but he won in 67, 68. Terry Bradshaw, 79 and 80. Patrick Mahomes, 2023, 2024. And each one of them won a Super Bowl in Miami. Now, when we talk about quarterback numbers, as I mentioned earlier, we now have to talk about the fact that, well, Patrick Mahomes and Bart Starr, if you ever ask or you're looking for the names you want to put by the number 15 for football player jerseys, Bart Starr, I'm sure they're going to put Patrick Mahomes first, then Bart Starr. With all due respect, Bart Starr was first, but now that Patrick Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls, and who knows, maybe Bart Starr might have won 3, but the story behind that is this. Vince Lombardi left the Green Bay Packers and went to Washington and became the head coach of the Washington team. When he left, Bart Starr retired. Had he stayed in Green Bay, Bart Starr might have played another year with the Packers to lead them to another Super Bowl. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know that for sure. So we don't know, and we will never know because they won't ever be doing that again. But those two guys have their name etched in stone by the number 15. So we want you to have all these pieces of trivia and facts because these are the things that are important when you talk about a game like the Super Bowl. So much is going on, and the reporters and the analysts, they're giving you all this information, and it's just so much. And sometimes some statistics or some things line up to be much broader and better than what's going on. So I wanted to bring that to you tonight and let you know who these guys were and what they had done. But going back to the fact that Patrick Mahomes is now writing his name in the stone for being a potential GOAT, greatest of all time. And a couple of more Super Bowls, he'll match, almost be there with Tom Brady. Brady won 6, 5 with New England, 1 with Tampa. But in 5 seasons or 5 opportunities, he's won 3. He's been to 4. And, he's won 4 out of 5. And 2 of them are back-to-back. So it's going to be interesting to see just how well Patrick Mahomes will and his career will do over the next 5 years. So that's from 2024 to 2029. He'll be about 33 years old then. He'll become more seasoned, keep some talent around him. He'll go far. But even if he doesn't, he has etched his name in Super Bowl history and NFL folklore. And, I guess he'll be one of the first guys that they always talk about could throw a sidearm and avoid trouble. So, Patrick Mahomes, you are the man for right now. Great ball game last night. Kudos to Brock Purdy for playing an outstanding ball game. The 49ers played a ball game last night that was nothing to be ashamed of. But the Kansas City Chiefs are the kings. They sit on top of the mountain with their crown. So now we have to wait to 2024 to see if they can run it back. They say they want to do a three-peat, so we'll just have to wait and see. Well, that's going to do it for me tonight here on the Post Route. I hope you've enjoyed our show. Please join us every Monday right here at 7 o'clock. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the Anthony Lawrence Collection, for being a sponsor. And next month, we're looking at starting to offer merchandising of the Quarterfied Back collection, from T-shirts to caps to varsity jackets. So we'll be updating you with that. And we also will remind you to get your copy of the Forgotten QBs from our website at quarterfiedback.com. For my producer and director, Miss Ronleen Kennedy, kudos to her for always being on point and making these shows what they are. Till next time, right here on Monday night, got a great show we're looking for next Monday night. We'll put out the information on Instagram and on Twitter, so you'll know who we're going to have on the show. So next week, tune in, 7 o'clock, right here on the Post Route. I'm Earl Kitchings. Until next time, we always say, go deep and go for the bomb. Take care, everybody.